Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel for today's video. I wanted to go over understanding how a narcissist becomes delusional. So let's jump in. So the narcissist, how they become delusional when they're a young child, they're still in development. And in those early stages of development, because they're at such a low vibration, and low vibration, we all know, attracts negative energy. So if you could see like dark energy or demonic energy out in the world, brightest lights are the ones they want to feed off, but those are the ones that irritate them the most. So they want to put those down to the ground, but they get the best fuel from them. But to do that, they have to be in-house, typically in a human body, because they are the dark spirits, dirty spirits from Genesis 6. When the fallen angels mated with the human women, created big giants in the land. That's kind of where we get mythology from today. It was pre-Noah's Ark flood reality. And because angelic hosts mated with human flesh, the daughters of men, the sons of God, mated with the daughters of men. Now a son of God is either an angel or a fallen angel. It's just an angel that was made in its perfection by God. And because it fell, now it's a fallen angel. But a demon is not a fallen angel. A demon is a disembodied spirit or demonic entity that was once housed in a body from a copulation of an angelic host and a human daughter of man, pre-flood Noah's Ark. And they were even there post-flood, but not to the level they were in the depravity that they were previous to the flood. But what they do is they need to be in a body, and they like to get the ones that are the youngest because they're still in childhood development. So they will attach themselves to them and they will mold them, or in their developmental stages or phases of life, they will have influence on them. And it will be heavy influence to where it's almost always a win for them in most cases. And the child will listen to this intuition or influence, and it will probably affect their emotional field as well. It'll affect all fields of life, and it will be a target of oppression. It will oppress them, and then eventually will enter them and take over after they sacrifice their true self for their false self, like it's spoken of in psychology. The true self is your innate spirit, and then you have your mind, will, and emotions in your flesh. So it puts to death the innate spirit. Then it enters and has complete control over them, which could seem like intuition, but it's not. And they think their mind, will, and emotions is their innate spirit. But those are just tools to assist the innate spirit. The innate spirit is not really corrupted in its true fashion as it was created. And your mind, will, and emotions are tools that can assist in that, but they can be corrupted as well as the flesh, the meat suit. So when you don't have your innate spirit, you have no regulation over controlling goodness. You put to death the goodness, and with the innate spirit is housed in it all of the fruits of the spirit spoken of in the Word of God. That's also the location where you would get saved when you accept Christ. So love, joy, peace, gentleness, goodness, long-suffering, goodwill, and good self-control. All of these things are all tethered to love, and they're all tethered to the innate spirit. So when the innate spirit is sacrificed, then you don't have a true self, and you become a lie because you become a false self. You become, that entity becomes the mask, and it has to be powered up, because anything that is true doesn't need fuel. It can self-generate. But when you have to put off a false persona, an imitation, it's got to look good or else people won't believe it. So you need fuel, and fuel for something like that has to come from other people, because to make that look good, you need somebody else's energy, emotional energy, fuel. And the best kind is going to be that naive type fuel, the ones that are good people, but they don't know they're getting their fuel stolen. It's like virgin fuel. It's not good for a narcissist to get fuel from another narcissist. But when they get it from a unawoke super empath or an empath or a black sheep, that's the best fuel. And what they do in early childhood, this dark energy will begin. This is my interpretation of it. Most of them think just logical, and they have no emotional regulation. and they don't feel any of the love factors, the 9 fruits of the spirit that I just named, but they only feel hate, sabotage, greed, seduction, adrenaline, hate, anger, depression, paranoia, anxiety, sadistic type things, malignant things that hurt and injure and use people. So what this energy does is it forces them to think just to the more of the anatomical left brain, and that's going to be more logical, but it doesn't until it sacrifices itself. It kind of sacrifices itself, in my opinion, by having its blood flow pushed all the way to the left, thinking logical all the time. Now you're talking about a young child that's in early development, and a young child in early development is not going to know necessarily, because their intuition is not going to be the best. Now, if you are going to be a good individual, then that would either be known at this point, and that dark energy may hover around you until you defeat it. But it's not going to get to the point to where you become a narcissist, or it won't bother you at all as much, except from the outside, from others. So what this dark energy does is it gets them to think fight or flight, or fight or flight all the time, and in fear and lack, and in the logical side of things. So the right brain, or the frontal lobes, are kind of desperate for blood flow, but if it's always thinking this way, on this side, if you could think of a river with 3 or 4 veins and vessels where the water will break up into to feed another landmass, well, that would be like the right brain. But let's say it's all going to the left, and this right side is not getting fed. What's it going to do? It's going to dry up, and then it's going to turn to hard dirt after it's muddy. And then when you try to put water in that area, there's going to be no canals. There's going to be no life there, and everything's going to be like rock hard, the ground. And so it's kind of deadened, right? When you have no water flow, it's like blood flow. There would be no life. So once you have no life somewhere, it becomes a desert. So once it becomes a desert, you can't bring it back. And so that's kind of what happens in the case of this. And part 2 later. All right, y'all. So I wanted to finish up because I had some people that I had to attend to. But anyway, to finish this up, how do they become delusional? So they start thinking from that left side, the anatomical left mainly, which is more along the lines of a logical side. And they can't feel those emotions that humanity feels in the love sector, dealing with love. Everything branches from love. That's why they can't forgive, they can't ask for forgiveness, and they can't apologize. And that's why a lot of times they're completely fake and they're a complete lie. It's almost like they can't tell the truth, because if you sacrificed your true self, and what's in control of that space now, that heart space, that space is more like just head space. There's just no heart space anymore. Well, you're going to be cold, you're going to be robotic, you're going to be interdimensional, and you're not going to look like regular humanity. And when things come at you, you're going to have to fake it, because you have to fit into humanity. But they don't fit in very well, so they have to steal energy off people and siphon. That's why they call them energy vampires. But, you know, when they talk about vampires in mythology, it's got to get you thinking on the esoteric level, where they really talking about energy vampires, because it's always a little twist to it, what the truth really is. So maybe in antiquity, mainly, and I know there's people that drink blood and they like the adrenaline that comes from it, but they're addicted to blood-filled adrenaline, all kind of craziness. But I'm getting at where we told a sidetracked story, because they have to tell the truth, so they kind of tell it in a mockery or a little upside down, twisted, or backwards. That's how the enemy is. And that's exactly how the narcissist is. So you know they are in tune with the enemy of the Bible, because they cannot be true. And they can never deal with their issues, because if they could deal with their issues, this would have never happened to begin with, because 200 is the level of vibration of courage. And they can only get to a 199, which is pride. And then at the 199 mark, instead of getting to 200, they fall back down to shame. So pride comes before the fall. If you follow the vibration chart from astrophysicist David Hawkins, that's what it shows on the vibrational chart. They can never get to courage to where they could take the mask off and be their true self. That's why they are fixed. And what happens, because they can't deal with their issues in a truthful way, they start to build this illusion. They have to. There's no other way. So they will build a fantasy around how, it's kind of like how you rationalize something right, that's really wrong. Well, that's what they do, and that's an illusion, right? And that's witchcraft. Manipulation is witchcraft, to manipulate and to convince people of things that are not as though they are, to paint a different picture than what you expect and what you know is true. And that's what they do. That's what their whole life is. So they keep building these illusions. And in these illusions, it makes them delusional. And there's no truth in them. That's why if you ask them about their past, their present, or their future, it's all a fake. It's all a lie. And most of the time, they don't even know their background. It's almost as if nobody knows it, then do they know it? Really? What happens if they get them as young children? They can convince them that nobody feels love, joy, peace, and all these things, all these fruits of the Spirit spoken of in the Word, all these emotions, all these ways of thinking and ways that we have used as foundational pieces of this earth. And that's what we build all our judicial system, our House of Representatives, and our government on. If we're just, that's what it's built on, these laws that are put into motion. Well, what you'll find is narcissists always trying to get around them, and they're great manipulators, but they have dark energy that's helping them from a whole nother realm. And they're very, very intuitive on a negative level, on a negative energy level. So they're complete perfection in their evil. That's what a demon would be. And that's kind of what you see. They're working through this avatar of the narcissist that they control. But because they get them so young, they may never actually feel these feelings, these emotional feelings of goodness. Because they shut them down so quickly, they convince the narcissist as they're getting older, everybody is faking it. Because they never felt it. And they don't even know what it feels like. And then when they have a super empath or some sort of primary source supply that's really good, which there's not many of them, that are also going to go for them, go for a narcissist. Some are in marriages and relationships and permanently taken off the market. And there's a lot of people that won't deal with low vibrations, and a lot of people that didn't grow up in narcissistic families. So there's only a few. And as you get older, there's less and less and less. Or you have toxic enablers, what they turn into. But the chosen sources are the ones that break the curse. And they have to break it coming out of a narcissistic relationship through betrayal and destruction. That's what shakes a chosen one or generational curse breaker up and out of it. And generally speaking, they have a mantle to wear, a anointing. And that's why they were beat down their whole life. Usually middle-aged or something by the time that you actually break free from it, or in your 30s at least. There's people that understand narcissism to a certain extent, but they don't understand or even care too much about the knowledge they do have. So they would be more like lukewarm, or the types that understand maybe a psychological but not a spiritual piece to it, which is huge. It's probably 50%. And so what they do is they become delusional. They have to create everything. Their whole life becomes an illusion, delusion, or a fantasy, or a mask, which is all the same thing. It's just ego-based fakeness to compensate for things that don't exist, because they cannot reach these goals. They cannot reach these opportunities in truth. And because they don't have courage, they cannot deal with injury. They cannot deal with accepting the fact that they have issues, or they have a problem, or they're not perfect, because they're on that level of vibration and controlled by that entity or those entities. So what happens is they have to create illusions of fantasy or fakeness throughout every sector and foundational piece of their life, so that they will have protection from it. And then they get flying monkeys and people around them that are only going to please them and adhere to that fantasy. Because the first time that you defy the fantasy, they ghost you, they rage out, they leave you, or they get you in check by punishing you. So the delusion is a false reality that they live in, and the people around them feed it. The people pleasers, the enablers, the toxic enablers, and people that are narcissists as well, or narcissistic heavily, or people that have some sort of gain to walk into the illusion with the narcissist, maybe financial, or it could be something fleshly, because everything narcissist does is in a fleshly state. They cannot even think more metaphysical or spiritual. Like they're stuck in a 3D period, and they're okay with it. They don't love, so that's why they destroy. They're destroyers. They don't build, they're not creative, because creativity is on the right brain, or creativity, common sense, and intuition, and all the love, joy, peace, gentleness, goodness, kindness, all that stuff is all on the right brain, or coming from the innate spirit, wherever those pathways are, but more centered on the anatomical right. That's why a narcissist is a hater, because they can't be creative and they have to bite off everybody's style to make it through life, and they hate it. Their history, their current, and their future is all a fake. It's all a culmination of a 1,000-piece puzzle, meaning 1,000 different people that they've either met or dated or known in their life. They put all pieces of their life, these individuals, these 1,000 people that they met, into a portrait as this puzzle comes together, and they claim it as their own. But in fact, it's all a lie, and none of it's true, or it's a complete turnaround from what the truth of that narrative truly was, because they're always lying by omission and things like that. But anyway, that's a little bit about the delusion, the lies, and why they are the way they are, because they get influenced by these dark energies at such a young age, at toddler level, that they get convinced that everybody's faking their true self, or these love sectors, or this intuition. Thank you for watching. If you give me a like, subscription, and thumbs up, love you. Up to next time. Peace be out.